The HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast is fueled by Eukanuba. If you want to get the most of your dog in your training sessions, you need nutrition that holds nothing back. Eukanuba's new premium performance lineup is built with the nutrients dogs need to help unleash their max potential. That starts with providing energy that matches their efforts, supporting optimal nutrient delivery, and supporting post-exercise recovery. Check out the new Eukanuba premium performance lineup and find your dog's fuel at eukanubasportingdogs.com. You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. Lifetime Decoy's new Flex Float Mallard decoys set the new standard for quality and durability in waterfowl decoys. An EVA foam, open bottom construction combined with patent-pended dual-flow swim keel system allows for more movement and less wind, the ability to sit flat on ice and dirt, and virtually indestructible design which can be shot or otherwise punctured and still float. Each decoy weighs only 11 ounces with the self-righting keel weights removed or 19 ounces with the weights installed. Check them out today at lifetimedecoys.com. Soundgear is offering a 35% discount to the HP Outdoors listeners for their instant fit industrial and shooter products. You can head over to soundgearhearing.com and use the promo code HPO35 to claim your discount today. Welcome back to the HP Outdoors Foundation of Waterfowl Hunting course. This is Module 1, Lesson 9. The final lesson in this module, we'll be covering other regulations. What that means is we're going to be covering various things that are just not firmly in any of the baskets we've hit yet. So we'll be referring to some things of various illegal hunting methods, things that you cannot do, things that are legal and that you can do, and then just sort of some responsibilities that you as the hunter hold when entering the field. So this will be a little bit of a miscellaneous list of items, but they're all equally important to ensure that you're meeting all of the laws when you set out to hunt. So some things that you cannot hunt waterfowl with are a trap, a snare, a net, a rifle, pistol, swivel gun, a shotgun larger than 10 gauge, a punt gun, battery gun, machine guns, fish hooks, poison, drugs, explosives, or stupefying substance. So basically you cannot use anything other than typical what you would associate with waterfowl hunting, shotgun, 10 gauge, 12 gauge, 20 gauge, whatever. You can hunt with a 10 gauge, obviously, but no larger than that. Some regulations, obviously, again, as we've mentioned, will be different in other areas. So these things are generally speaking, there may be areas where some of this is done for certain circumstances, but in general, these things are typically not legal. Hunting from a sink box or any other low floating device that conceals you beneath the surface of the water is typically illegal. Hunting from a motorboat or a sailboat, unless you obviously shut off the motor, so the vessel is no longer in motion. So basically what this means is you cannot use your boat to run ducks up and down a waterway, flushing them up and shooting them as they are flying away. Your boat needs to be no longer being propelled by its motor to be able to shoot from it legally. Using live birds as decoys is also forbidden. And as we've mentioned, having in possession any other shot other than approved non-toxic shot would be illegal. Using recorded or electronically amplified bird calls is typically illegal. And then shotguns that can hold more than 3 shells, which would, we would be considered having the plug in, right? A plug would allow you to have 1 in the chamber and 2 in the magazine. Those are typically the limits. You can, however, for both the shotgun plug and electronic calling, those restrictions do not apply when hunting during some light goose conservation seasons in certain authorized areas. So in general, you need to have a plug in your shotgun, and you need to have, not be using electronic calls and things like that. So again, know the birds that you're pursuing and what's legal for that particular pursuit. will get you a long way.
Yeah, I think one of the other most checked things besides the lead shot in the field would be if you have your plug in your gun. So a game warden will come out, they have a little rod that they shove up into the magazine, and if it's over that limit, then you'll be walking out with a fine. So what is legal? You can hunt waterfowl on or over or from standing crops or flooded standing crops, including aquatic plants. So if you have flooded cornfields, it's a great place to go, and it's totally legal. Standing, flooded, or manipulated natural vegetation, flooded, harvested croplands, lands or areas where grains have been scattered solely as a result of a normal agricultural planting, harvesting, or post harvest manipulation. And we talked about this in the baiting, but if you are hunting, let's say, a cut cornfield and um, there's corn laying around on the field, if that is the normal agricultural practice, then you are good to go. Lands or areas where top sown seeds have been scattered solely as the result of a normal agricultural planting or a planting for agricultural soil erosion control or post mining land reclamation. That is also legal. A blind or other place of concealment camouflaged with natural vegetation. A blind or other place of concealment camouflaged with vegetation from ag crops, provided your use of such vegetation does not expose, deposit, distribute, or scatter grain or other feed. So if you set up a box at the end of a standing corn, it's still there, and you get a couple of stalks, make sure that you're not exposing corn as you place that on your blind. Standing or flooded standing crops where grain is inadvertently scattered solely as the result of hunters entering or leaving the area, placing decoys, or retrieving down birds. Hunters are cautioned that while conducting these activities, any intentional scattering of grain will create a baited area. So, once again, a very gray area. If you inadvertently scatter those seeds, you're legal. But if you kind of throw them down, then you could be, it's your word versus the game warden, and your word probably won't go very far. What is illegal? Some examples of an area where you cannot hunt waterfowl include areas where grain or seed has been top sown, and the co-op extension service does not recommend the practice of top sowing. And there are different sections of wildlife food plots that you can look further into to determine this. Crops that have been harvested outside of the recommended harvest dates established by the co-op extension service. That's another one that, I just see so many different weather patterns, especially in the Midwest, Kansas, they're having difficulties getting crops in and getting crops off with the water or the drought or whatever is going on. It's just been so crazy. Um, Unharvested crops that have been trampled by livestock or subjected to other types of manipulations that distribute, scatter, or expose grain. That's another one that can get you in trouble really quick, and you might not know it. That might be one edge of a field that could be drawing birds that you set up on the other side of the field, and if they're coming into that and you pull them over, you can get in trouble for that. Areas where grain is present and stored, such as grain elevators and grain bins. That that takes me back to a couple photos that trains are loaded up with corn, and there's like thousands of mallards on top of the train, and you're just like, man, that'd be nice to hunt there, but I would not do that. Areas where grain is present for the purpose of feeding livestock is illegal. Freshly planted wildlife food plots that contain exposed grain. So if you're spreading seed out there along the edge of a pond during season, you can get in trouble for that. Croplands where a crop has been harvested and the removed grain is redistributed or added back onto the area where it's grown. Those are all illegal examples where you cannot hunt waterfowl.
Right. And you just rattled off a bunch of different things. And I think the biggest takeaway here is that as the hunter it is your responsibility to know what's right and what's wrong and what you can and what you cannot do. Um, so, one of the biggest ways that guys you've seen get in trouble is around baiting, because the ambiguity that goes with that, and known or should have known, and what's normal farming practice and things like that. So, just to sort of wrap up that point, familiarize yourself with the federal and state waterfowl hunting regulations for your area. If you're out in the field hunting, you need to be asking the landowner, the host or the guide that you're with, or your hunting buddies, if that area has been baited and inspected for that area for the presence of bait. If you see waterfowl feeding in a particular area in an unusually large concentration, or showing of lack of caution for their well-being, it's fair to suspect that that area may be baited, or may be in a condition that would meet the threshold of baiting should a game warden become aware of it. Look for grain or other feed in the water along the shore or in the field, and paying particularly close attention to the presence of spilled grain on harvested fields and seeds planted by means of top sowing. As Dan mentioned, that's not something that's typically recommended. Confirm that the scattered seeds and grains on the agricultural. Did I say architectural before, Dan?
No, that
Okay,
was your first. That was your
I thought I
first
said
time you said that.
architectural. I meant to say agricultural lands. Make sure that they're present solely as a result of normal agricultural planting or harvesting or post-harvest manipulation, etc. And ensure that it falls within those lines. And at the end of the day, if you find yourself in a situation where you think this could be happening, you need to abandon that site and ensure that you steer clear of there for the appropriate period of time. Other responsibilities that you have: if you are preparing lands for hunting, participating in the preparations, or directing them, it's important for you to know and understand what practices will constitute baiting for your situation. You need to know what activities and when the lands or other areas would be considered baiting before those areas are hunted. So, conversations with your local game wardens about what they find as the threshold for baiting would probably go a heck of a long way if you were in that situation. If you bait or direct that area be baited and allow waterfowl hunting to take place, you risk the charge of being charged for an offense that carries a fairly significant penalty. So you're obviously putting yourself on the hook there if that's something that you're engaged in. One last thing, we mentioned this earlier, but it's a term called rallying, and that is using a boat or something motorized to stir up or concentrate or do a duck drive, as an example, to aid in the harvesting of waterfowl. Like, that is not legal to do that. So if you're hunting from a boat, ensure that you're no longer being propelled forward by the motor of the engine before you fire your gun in a hunting situation. So,
I want to add on to all of this. We are talking mostly to newer hunters that haven't came into this in the field, and I think one thing that happens is that game wardens get a bad rap, and these guys are out there because they love the environment and the game that's out there, right? So they're out there to protect it and make sure the laws are being followed. If you are new, I would try to, contact your local warden or game commission officer and ask them. And if you have questions about a baited field, have them come out, check it out, and say, am I good to hunt here? What do you think? And they'll give you an idea. And the thing that most people don't realize, I think a lot of wardens get a bad rap, but if you become friends with them, those guys are out in the field all the time. You can ask them, hey, have you been seeing any birds? And just, get in good with them, and they'll be like, yeah, you guys need to check out, this square over here. And they've been hitting it hard. Every time I drive by, I see a lot of birds, and it's totally open. It might be public land, it might be whatever. So don't go into hunting with a bad rap on wardens. Become friends. And if you are asking questions like baiting questions, and is this baited, it'll go a long way when it comes down to them checking you in the field, because they know that you're on the up and up and want to make sure you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, there's no doubt that they can be a fantastic resource for not just new hunters, but also veteran hunters that find themselves unsure of what to do. It's always best to ask and get clarification to begin with. So that is going to wrap up our module on regulations and laws. And, I think the big takeaway here is that there's a lot to cover, right? And feel free to go back through and revisit some of these regulations, and particularly the ones that you feel may apply directly to your hunting scenario. Again, these are we tried to keep the regulations fairly general when discussing them, because they do vary from state to state and from area to area. And again, not all of these things that we spoke of today will be current by the time this is heard by you. So please ensure that you look at your local, state, federal regulations to ensure that you're getting the absolutely most current information available before you head to the field. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this module. We're going to come back again with module 2, and we will kick that off talking about safety. That's going to do it for this episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. If you're new to the show, head over to iTunes, check out some of our past episodes, and while you're there, leave us a 5-star rating and review. It's the best way for like-minded hunters just like you to find our show. Check us out on social media. Check us out over at hpoutdoors.com and anywhere you can find quality podcast content. That's going to do it for this week. Till next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.